Hi, I'm Farmer Bob, a first generation farmer from Princeton, Kansas. I chose to get into farming because it fascinated me. I have created the Princeton Popcorn and Farmer Bob's brands by supplying products from my farm across the country. I have had success on Amazon as well as selling directly to consumers. I have made this video series I call American Harvest to share my enthusiasm for America's success in agriculture and the fun things that I have learned over the years. I try to include a segment I call Firsthand Farmhand, where I relate some of my firsthand experiences with agriculture as it relates to the topic of the video. Share a few moments with me during this video, and I'll share some of the things that interest me. I'm sure you will enjoy it, and you may learn something, as I have enjoyed doing during this process. Thank you for your time. I didn't grow up on a farm, no family land, no tractor in the barn, none of it. I chose this as a grown adult on purpose. And the more I learned, the more I realized something kind of wild. Almost none of us know where our food actually comes from anymore. So I went digging, and I want to bring you with me. For about 300,000 years, humans ate one way. We hunted and we gathered, nomads, always following the food. Then, around 12,000 years ago, somebody did something revolutionary. They took a seed and they planted it on purpose, and they waited. That one idea, farming, might be the most important thing our species ever figured out because for the first time, we could grow more food than we needed. And a surplus changes everything. Surplus meant people could stop wandering. It meant towns, then cities, then writing, trade, and armies. Civilization itself. Every city you have ever stood in exists because somebody, somewhere, learned to plant a seed. That's the whole history of humanity in about a minute. But I want to tell you our story, American agriculture. And it doesn't start with amber waves of grain. It starts with a swamp, a starving colony, and a crop you can't even eat. 1607, a few hundred English settlers land in Virginia and build a fort they call Jamestown. And almost immediately they start dying. They had picked a swampy spot, the water made them sick, and most of them were fortune hunters, not farmers. The winter of 1609 was so brutal they called it the starving time. Out of around 500 colonists, about 60 survived. What saved them, honestly, was the people already here. Native Americans had farmed this land for thousands of years. Corn, beans, and squash grown together. The three sisters, the colonists survived by learning from them. But the thing that didn't just save Jamestown, the thing that made it rich, was tobacco. In 1612, a colonist named John Rolfe planted a sweeter Caribbean tobacco in Virginia soil. It thrived, and back in England, people were completely hooked on it. America's first cash crop wasn't food at all. Now, I have this thing I do on this channel. When a crop really shaped this country, I don't just want to read about it, I want to grow it myself. I call it firsthand farmhand. And tobacco. Tobacco was the very first one I had to try. So this year I planted 3 heirloom cigar varieties: Cuban Criollo, Connecticut Broadleaf, and Havana. I started them inside in little trays, then moved the seedlings out to my own dirt here in Kansas. And I waited. And when it finally flowered, well, look at that. It is a genuinely beautiful plant. But growing it taught me something the history books kind of gloss over. Tobacco is greedy. It drains the soil in just a few years. And standing in my own field, I finally understood why this one plant demanded so much land and so many hands to work it. That's the first of these. I'm going to keep putting my hands on the crops that built America, one at a time. So tell me in the comments what I should grow next. And here's the thing about tobacco. It is an incredibly labor-intensive crop. Even today, it's planted, topped, suckered, picked, and cured almost entirely by hand. Back then, with no machinery at all, growing it on any real scale took an enormous amount of human labor. That labor first came from indentured servants, working off the cost of their passage from England, and as tobacco boomed, planters turned more and more to enslaved Africans, and slavery became deeply tied to the southern farm economy for generations. That one plant set a pattern you'll see echo through this whole series. A valuable crop, a hunger for land, a demand for labor, and far-off markets calling the shots. 400 years later, those same forces still shape American farming. Now, most colonists weren't tobacco barons. The typical American was a subsistence farmer, growing corn and wheat, raising a few animals, feeding their own family. And by the 1700s, farming wasn't just the economy, it was the identity. Around 90% of Americans farmed. Thomas Jefferson believed farmers were the very backbone of the republic. And Jefferson, a farmer himself, made one more move that changed everything. In 1803, he doubled the size of the country overnight with the Louisiana Purchase and sent Lewis and Clark west to map it. The Corps of Discovery came back with journals full of new land, new plants, and new soil, and it cracked the whole American West wide open. Honestly, if enough of you want a whole episode just on Lewis and Clark, say so in the comments because I could talk about them all day. Because next we head into that West, where Americans grabbed a plow, tore into a prairie that had never been farmed, and set up both the greatest boom and the worst man-made disaster in American farming history. If any of that made you go, huh, I never knew that, well, good. That's exactly why I'm making this, and I'm learning it right alongside you. So do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next episode. And tell me down in the comments what surprised you the most and what crop should I put my hands on next. All right, let's keep going together.